fund this district.
Kenyan government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura says they condemn the actions that led to the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. Ojwang was hit on the head and his death was likely to have been caused by assault. That's according to a post-mortem. Albert Ojwang, a digital creator who microblogged on X and Facebook on topical, political and social issues, was arrested in Homa Bay, a town in western Kenya, on Friday. He was detained over a post on X that was allegedly critical of the Deputy Inspector General of Police. Mwara says the actions are unacceptable.
From the government's stand is that we will make sure that there is justice that is brought to book. The police who are been allegedly suspected for having done this, there will be investigation by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPO as we call it here, and so action shall be taken, and already action has already been taken to a certain extent. And we really condemn as a government this action. It's not acceptable. It doesn't matter whether somebody has been defamed or not, but that cannot cost life.
An uneasy calm has descended over Los Angeles as U.S. Marines prepare to deploy to the city. This comes after nearly a week of protests and riots over the Trump administration immigration policies. The partial curfew was lifted yesterday morning. Police say they've made hundreds of arrests overnight. The BBC's Carl Nassman has the details.
The numbers definitely larger than they were a couple of hours ago. And we're watching right now because what tends to happen here is once that demonstration makes it into the streets, that's when the authorities come and they try a bit of crowd control to keep everybody on the sidewalk. If they're unable to do that, and this is what we saw yesterday, that's when they tend to come in and start to disperse people, and that's when the tensions start to ratchet up once again.
And finally, Africa must take the lead in developing its own health research and clinical trial systems. That's the message from physician-scientist Dr. Tariro Makadzange. Speaking on Channel Africa Conversations, Dr. Makadzange, who heads the Africa Clinical Research Network, says the continent can no longer afford to rely on foreign-led studies that often fail to reflect Africa's unique health realities. Here's a clip from the conversation.
When you look at research and trials globally, Africa only contributes about 3% of trials include African patients, and we're about 18-20% of the global population. We're also the fastest growing population on the globe. We're also the most genetically diverse population on the globe. But it means that when you and I take medications, there hasn't been as much research on how those drugs work in our populations.
You can catch the full interview of Dr. Tariro Makadzange with Peter Ndoro on this week's podcast, Channel Africa Conversations on YouTube. Recapping the top story this hour, the South African National Defence Force says they are ready to receive the first group of its soldiers who were deployed in the Eastern DRC tomorrow. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel African News, I'm Jolani Tulo-Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Good morning, Africa, and thank you so much for being a part of this incredible place, this incredible family, and this incredible space where we unpack the African perspective. It's 9:07 Central Africa time. A huge thank you to the morning team. That's Asanda Beta and Peter Ndoro, who kickstart our morning here on Channel Africa with Africa Rise and Shine. But now it's time for On the Move with myself, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. We'll be with you all for the next 3 hours, giving you news, views, and entertainment from the African perspective. 12 p.m. Central Africa time is where we're taking this ride to. So hop on. Let's see what we're unpacking today. Well, first of all, we were speaking about yesterday being International Day of Play, just off air. If you go on our social media platforms, you'll be able to see Ben and I playing one of the games that we used to play when we were younger. And childhood games are a universal language, because no matter which village, city, or town you go to, the children there have their own games that they play. And of course, play is a huge part of not just fun, but also child development and just releasing from the world stress. But as we grew older, some people it's in their teenage years, some people it's in they late teens, some it's in their 20s, and some even in their mid 20s, when eventually you just stop playing and you don't know how that happens. You get sort of sucked into the seriousness of life and the seriousness of the world, and you stop playing altogether. But experts do say that returning to some of the childhood play, your childhood hobbies and games, is more than a new form of entertainment, but also an escape for our daily stresses. And you know how much we need to escape from those daily stresses. So we're speaking about adults playing in the first hour of today's show. We'll be chatting to Theophilus Chabalala, chairperson of WOMAN, which stands for Well Organized Man, a non-profit organization that uses the power of sport to foster social change. We'll also be speaking to Dr. Kitumetse Mashego, sports and clinical psychologist, to talk about the psychology of adult play. So that's going to be a very interesting one. We're going to our second hour. That's our Becoming feature. That's a feature that takes a look at, just our human nature, our human development and human growth. When you speak about a company, every company has a board of directors. These are people who make decisions on the company, but you can also bounce things off about the company itself. But maybe we as people also need a board of directors, sort of a group or a few people that are around us, a close community of people that help become a sounding board for the things in your life, that can help inspire or help you aspire to certain things, but can also tell you the truth about the things that are happening in your life and sort of help you grow. We'll be chatting to life coach Sarah Munyi about how you can go about creating your personal board of directors. And then we wrap it up with our parenting and family corner in our final hour of today's show. A lot of young children around this time of the year are taking exams, and it's a very stressful time where the focus is often on textbooks and study schedules. But what if you try and look at a way to study or to approach learning in a way that works best for you as an individual? We're chatting about something called Neuro-Agility Profile, which is an assessment that offers a powerful way for young people to understand how their brain works best, how to learn, and where their natural talents lie. And of course, this is a great way to help sort of study and look at the future in a way that works personally for you as an individual. So Rushka Lee, certified Neuro-Agility Profile practitioner and life coach, will be chatting to us in today's final hour.
Yeah, man, we look forward to all those conversations. I'm looking forward to this conversation that's coming up. As an adult, do you still play? Do you still go into the streets and say, hey kids, let's get out here, let's play, I want to play with all of you? Or do you find yourself with your little ones actually while you're cooking, while you're busy doing stuff in the garage, whatever you're up to in the house, and they're like, hey dad, let's play, hey mom, come over here, and you're like, yeah, I'm into it, I'm gonna do it. We'll talk a little bit about adult playing, and we're talking about the real play, the play of children, finding that inner child in you. Remember, you can stay in touch with us on +27 63 406 9126. That's where you can text us, that's where you can voice note us. We love hearing from you. And yeah, if you are right there in our live stream, thank you for joining us there as well.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
This song has a line that I love so much in the isiXhosa language. It says, Andinayo nesentem daga. So I went down to the Eastern Cape. So I went to Yanga and said, Yanga, tell me here, what does Andinayo nesentem daga mean?
If I say Andinayo nesentem daga, it means that I do not have any money on me. I do not have money to give to you.
Interesting, because in Chivenda I would just say, Atinana peni, ndo cherumwe. I wonder if you have that expression in your home language when you want to say you're broke, but in a very creative way. What do you say? I'd like to hear from you.
Africa in Song with Chanduko Ligege.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Get set and be ready to go. On the move with Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama.
Tsamoreka omo, ingi omo, tsamoreka omo, ingi omo, ingi omo. That's one of my favorite childhood games that I would play. It would be so many of us coming through from our different houses in the street, would all come and gather in the middle of the street and create a huge circle and hold hands and would play all these different games. And it would be so incredible that most of us, our parents would tell us that, hey, you need to be home by the time the street lights come on. And of course, it's easy to say that most of us were not home by the time the street lights came on, because the games would just go on and on and on, and it would be so much fun, and all of us obviously would be in trouble by the time we got home because we were late and the street lights were already on. And childhood games are really a universal language, because no matter where you go in the world, the children of that area have their own games that they like to play. And you know how games are as well when you were younger. Games are seasonal, right? There'd be a season to play marbles and a season to play tops, a bicycle season, and these games would come and exchange through the seasons, and it'd just be such an incredible time to enjoy yourself. But games were not more than enjoyment for children. They're also an integral part of human development. But as you grew older, you realized that suddenly we stopped playing. How did that even happen? For some people, it happens in their teen years, some in their late teens, some even in their 20s, when all of a sudden, one game at a time, you just stopped playing. And experts are saying that returning to childhood hobbies and games are actually more than a new form of entertainment, but rather an escape for daily stresses. And we all need to escape the stress that we have, and maybe something that could actually help you take care of your mental health. We're talking about adults playing, and I'm enjoying this subject matter because I still love to play, and whenever I can find an opportunity to go somewhere where play is possible, to do something that feels like play and to feel that spirit of play within me, I will take every opportunity to do it. But I know so many adults have forgotten altogether how to play. We're chatting to Theophilus Chabalala, chairperson of WOMAN, that stands for Well Organized Man, a non-profit organization that uses the power of sport to foster social change and uplift communities about the importance of adult play and work they do in that space. Let's chat to you, Theophilus. Thank you so much for your time this morning. But before we go into the conversation, maybe you should tell me, what was your favorite game to play when you were young?
Good morning. Yes, thank you and welcome. My favorite game was Morabaraba. Morabaraba was the best because now it could teach us, all the strategies and how to tackle more than just that game, but also mentally it would also help you so that you can, relieve from stress, while you are winning. Also the challenges that the game gives you. Yeah. It can also help you in tackling some of the challenges of life also, and also show you that, it might be a bit of a challenge, but then at the end of the day, you will want to win. And winning also gives you that sense of pleasure, that, you've done something great for yourself. So it's just more than a game when we speak of indigenous. And also, another thing is, it also boosts you, like cultural diversity, It also promotes reconciliation and also nation building, because there are different nations that play that game. It's not only us here, you see, even though it's named differently in other I can say places here.
Do you know which one is my favorite, guys? You want to know?
Which one?
Madlalisana.
So playing house. And then do you want to be the father or the mother or the child?
Always the father.
Oh, goodness.
And I'll always identify who is the mother.
Benji, you were naughty. You were naughty.
Yeah, we were all fathers, I guess. We were all fathers. We all wanted to be fathers.
I was always the child.
And you always
the child must always sleep.
And you always want to go to sleep. When you go sleep,
go sleep over there. Okay, obviously it's so beautiful to see when we're talking about all these games we used to play. We all have these beaming smiles on our faces, and it almost feels like a beautiful energy fills the room when we speak about the childhood games we used to play. Why did we stop? I mean, there just came a point in our life where one game at a time we just stopped playing altogether.
Yeah, I think these change of times and technology also it went a bit far, if I may put it in that sense, because now bana ba shebile yona fela le batho ba baholo, all they have on their gadgets, their phones. No one is ever active. Hence, we also, as the organization, ended up coming with that initiative to engage with the Department of Sports to say, you know what, guys, those games are dying out, and these are very important activities to make, because it was just more than going to school at the end of the day. It was that thing of, yes, I'm going to school, but we're going to play. Even after we would play. So now being involved with the Department of Sports, they engage in central corridors. There are central corridor selections where there are indigenous games being played, different types such as your dibeke, your tristokis, diketo, intonga, juske, khati, koko, and morabaraba, and just to name a few. So those games are now being played at a competitive level, meaning that they can play in the community and then play to compete for the regionals and also compete for the provincials. Like last year, some of us also within the organization want to go represent the province, Gauteng province at the Hammanskraal provincial competition.
Yeah.
So they are taking it a bit far now, and we are bringing it back instead of just letting it go. So we are engaged as an organization. We are engaging them in schools. We are engaging them in churches, and when the churches have activities, we come in and we engage all the board games and all the active games such as your dibeke, Skopje ball, yes, all those games that exist in the indigenous field.
I love that, Theophilus. We need to take a break. We'd love to find out a little bit more about that initiative and how adults are participating and how it's also awakening that spirit from the adults, not just to play the games that they used to love, but now to play them competitively. We'll also hear from Dr. Kitumetse Mashego, clinical and sports psychologist, after our break to hear about the importance of adult play.
Africa at Play with NATO and ETO Chairman.
The Confederation of African Athletics, CAA President Mr. Hamad Kalkaba Malboum, talk to us about the state of athletics in Africa as it stands, and what picture are you looking at 5 years later?
Yeah, athletics in Africa is strong. We are able to organize our major events in time. Like this year, we will have the under-20 and under-18 African Championship in Nigeria. Next year, we will have the senior in Ghana. In 2027, we will go back to Algeria to organize the under-18 and under-20. And then 2028, we will have the senior championship in Gaborone in Botswana. Well, by this program, we can increase our performance. And at the same time, we are considering the fact that within the British Federation, they are identifying young talent every year within the national program, within the scholarship championship. So the athletics in Africa is in good standard.
Live every Saturday and Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. Central African Time. Embrace our young voices this month. Channel Africa, celebrating Youth Month. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Hey, do you still play as an adult? And you're probably like, no. Come on, Ben, what are you guys talking about? Those days are over. But you know what? There is a resurgence of that happening in many communities. I also see it a lot on digital platforms whereby people are just hang out in parties and they're going back to their childhood games and actually re-exploring them. At times, you actually see here in South Africa many parties that are under the theme of child play, and people have jumping castles and they do all that kind of sort of stuff, and they just really get into that inner child. Speaking about childhood games, are they something that we feel like we need to go back to as adults? We're speaking to Theophilus Shabalala, who's the chairperson of Well Organized Men, a non-profit organization which uses the power of sport to actually foster social change. And also we're joined by Dr. Gitumetsi Mashego, who's a sports and clinical psychologist. Before I come to you, Dr. Mashego, I want to ask Theophilus a little bit more about how they actually explore these particular games. How do you bring the adults, and are they convinced about actually playing these child games, or at first are they a little bit more reserved and then you have to open them up to explore their inner child?
Yeah, they are all missing it. Everyone that we talk to about these games and we engage with these games, they are all excited to be a part of, and they all express how they miss it and how they wish all their kids at this age can all be active and be part in these games. Because now, lazing around, these games, they don't allow you to laze around. They actually require you to be active. Mm-hmm. Even if it means being active mentally, being active physically, but then you are active and you will not focus on the games, being focused on the gadgets and stuff. So, us being engaged with the community and being able to connect with them, they are responding quite well to these games, and they say they are missing them, so they participate, and they participate to win also, and to also showcase how they used to play them. Even some of the rules that have now been, I can say, modified.
That sounds very interesting. I want to move into the psychology here. Why are they feeling that way? And maybe let's bring in Dr. Gitumetsi Mashego into this one, sports and clinical psychologist. This is happening a lot, Dr. Gitumetsi, where adults are wanting that child play. What is the psychology around this? Welcome on the show, Doctor.
Thank you so much for having me. Playing like you used to play as a child takes you back to a time that was so innocent, where you were free. Because nowadays, remember, we're dealing with load shedding, water shedding, all sorts of crises day in, day out. We are sharing so much trauma. So play takes you back to that, safe space, the familiar space, and it's also good for endorphins release, when you're doing any type of sports, even those, indigenous sports that we've seen becoming so popular nowadays.
And it seems like people are going to a point of their childhood moments where they used to feel a certain sense of freedom or a sense of self, or also just like, being naive and just being as a person. Why do you think, especially as Africans, we're going to specific games that actually represent also how we grew up, Dr. Mashego?
Definitely. It is, it takes us back to that safe space, or the time when we felt so free, as I've indicated, because nowadays we're dealing with so much stress, and it's we're not doing okay, and it's almost like we're going back to that nice place.
Mm-hmm. And is that something good from a psychology perspective, to explore that sense of the inner child in that playful way? Is it something that's good for us to explore that sense of childlikeness, and especially through play?
Definitely, because it brings out the curiosity, the creativity, and thinking outside of the box. Because remember, if you give children toys, the most expensive, sometimes they don't even want that. They want to play with the box. Mm-hmm. But give them a pile of leaves and they have the time of their lives. So I think we just need to appreciate what childlike play can do to our mental health state.
Before we let you go, Dr. Mashiko, what does that do for us psychologically as adults to actually explore more play? What do you think are the greatest benefits?
It really helps us to become the best versions of ourselves and to decrease our stress.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Kitumeti. Thank you for joining us. And I want to wrap this conversation up with you as we say goodbye, because this is such a fascinating conversation. Let's talk a little bit about what you've seen being the benefits, Theophilus, of why people get into this and what they say after a moment of play.
Okay, I'd say the benefits. I'd make an example of Nchuva, Murula. Well, the benefits of that game actually, the skills that can be developed, it can be computational and mathematical skills, it can be tactical maneuvers, can be ability to strategize, and it can also be mental agility. So it's got a few benefits to the personal, to the person who is, I can say, even maybe depressed or maybe stressed, or being active and playing those games. It can keep you just, free-minded. Hence we say it keeps you in a childlike spirit-minded, where you lose your adulthood. When you see them playing those games, you can even see a 75-year-old becoming like a 12-year-old. The way they respond to the activities that we engage them in. So it's got quite many activities. Hence, we are doing these events that we have. We've got annual event every year that we do. We started it this year, the first annual event of Run for a Period, where we raise sanitaries through these indigenous games. And then through those games, we also select some of the players that will be representing the region. So, it is coming in quite effective in the communities, if I may put it in that sense.
All right, man. Where can people go to actually find out more about this fantastic initiative that you are heading? Tell us a little bit more where people can find out more about the work that Well-Organized Men do.
Okay. We are on socials. If people may know, we've changed we were Men Indeed, a non-profit organization from 2021. And then we changed recently to Woman because of trying to reach out to a certain masses and also engage in certain activities. So we are on socials. You can get us on woman.npo@gmail.com. That's where you can email us. And then you can Google Woman, or you can Google Men Indeed. It's Men Indeed, as in men at work.
Sure.
And then it will tell you everything that we've got. And then through that, you will be able to find our website. We are yet fundraising so that we can be able to sustain the cost of the organization.
Sure.
And we've started being active at the moment. So we haven't secured any domains, So if you would like to get any information on us, you can go to our Facebook page, where it's Woman Non-Profit Organization.
Awesome. Okay, we have to leave it there. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Theophilus, thank you for hanging out with us. This is such a cool topic. And well done for doing such a great job. That's Theophilus Shabalala, chairperson of Well-Organized Man, also known as Woman, a non-profit organization that uses the power of sport to foster social change. It's 9:30 Central African time. Let's get the latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Good morning, guys. We begin with football news. Zimbabwe senior men's team played to a 1-0 draw against Niger in a friendly match played at Stade Pierre Jego Stadium in Morocco. Zimbabwe fielded a new look of the first 11, different from the one which played Burkina Faso. Makesi FC goalkeeper Elvis Chipezeze made his debut under coach Michael Nies. Youngster Jonah Fabish and Tawanda Macheke also enjoyed starting berth in the Warriors lineup. Desperate to redeem themselves from a Friday's 2-0 defeat against Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe managed to find the back of the net in the 9th minute thanks to Gerald Takara, who tapped in from the 6-yard box. The Warriors made several efforts to cushion their lead, but they failed to break Niger's defense and thus went to the break leading 1-0. Tava Vziva failed a record to a clean sheet on debut after conceding from the spot in the 71st minute as Niger equalized. The draw is the 5th for Michael Nies, who marked his 10th game in charge of the Warriors. And Africa's football's governing body CAF has postponed the WAFU Zone A and B Under-20 tournament to a later date that has not yet been disclosed. According to LFA, Liberia Football Association media manager Anthony Kokoi, the postponement led to the immediate disbandment of Liberia's under-20 squad, which had been in camp since the 6th of June at the George Weah Technical Center in Curriesburg. Now, cricket news. The decision by Themba Bavuma to bowl first on the morning of day one of the ICC World Test Championship final against Australia at Lord's in London paid off. However, hard work lies ahead for the Proteas' remaining batters. The defending champions were bowled out for 212 in the first innings inside 57 overs. The Proteas' two prima fast bowlers, Kagiso Rabada and Marco Jansen, took 8 wickets between them, with Rabada finishing with 5 figures for 51 in 15 overs and 4 deliveries. Rabada's 17th 5-wicket haul in his 71st test took his tally to 332 scarps in his career, going ahead of Alan Donald's 330-wicket mark. Rabada has more.
I guess to be named in that list, of bowlers is special. As a player growing up and representing South Africa, I've been inspired by those who've come before and seen, what they've done on the big stage. And as a kid, I was inspired, to want to do the same thing. So to be listed in that list of names is something special, and long may it continue.
And finally, golf news. Scottie Scheffler may not have been as prepared as he could have been for last year's US Open, but the tournament favorite at Oakmont Country Club says he's well rested and has done his homework ahead of the golf's toughest tests.
So having the week off was really important for me to get home, get some rest, recover, and I showed up here on Sunday and was able to play, I think, maybe 11 holes and really get used to the conditions, and feels much more like my normal major prep versus last year where you're coming in from basically a major championship test, coming into another one is pretty challenging.
For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fide Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Hey guys, question. Have you thought about what happens between 9 o'clock until midday, Saturday and Sunday? Well, it's me. Those that know me call me the fun police, and I'm that girl, that voice on your radio. My name is Pule Mulebadzi. I'm all about the finer things in life. Where to go, what to wear, who to see, and ultimately what to do. We aspire to bring you the best in travel, entertainment, with a dash or maybe a dose of laughter. And then of course we switch things up a bit when we look at technology. I love what's happening with AI because you blink, something new pops up. So the challenge is constantly there. I'm learning every single time on the show. So catch me every single Saturday and Sunday at 9 a.m. until 12 midday Central African Time, Baba.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Thank you for that sports update. Let's keep it moving with our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. Statistics South Africa has poured cold water on suggestions that there is something wrong with how it measures unemployment. This after the chief executive officer of one of the country's big five banks said a big part of the economy was left out, making the country's unemployment rate among the highest in the world. Dimakatsule Shuru reports.
The remarks come after outgoing chief executive of one of South Africa's largest banks, Gerrie Fourie, says the country's high unemployment rate would be around 10% if self-employed people and those employed in the informal sector were counted. South Africa's unemployment rate increased to 32.9% in the first 3 months of this year, according to data by the country's stats agency, Statistics South Africa.
The general manager of South Africa's rail company Transnet Engineering, Tshwanelo Tshwai, says the company was concerned about the state of infrastructure in the country owing to vandalism. Tshwai, however, commended Transnet's role in driving infrastructure's industrialization agenda with a strong focus on regional collaboration and localized manufacturing. He made the remarks during a media tour hosted by Transnet Engineering in the city of Cape Town.
Well, vandalism, I think it's a country problem currently. We're looking at many different ways in terms of, let's say, for instance, we have as a plant, there could be people coming under always, storm drains coming into our plants, and Kudesport, they do the same. Ours is to make sure that the security is in order.
South Africa's Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, has expressed relief that the process of adopting the 2025 fiscal framework is out of his hands. This after both houses of parliament adopted the framework yesterday. Godongwana only succeeded in tabling a budget on a third attempt after discontent over his proposed value-added tax increase in the previous two budget proposals. He reminded MPs of their responsibility to ensure that the budget was properly implemented.
But you can't fault the budget. Don't fault the budget. 409 billion rand is going to spend on the transport infrastructure over the next 3 years. You can't fault this budget. If it's not spent properly, that's your duty as members of parliament to do your oversight. That's your duty.
Kenya's finance minister will present a budget today aimed at boosting revenues to service debt while avoiding tax measures that triggered the kind of deadly protests that rocked East Africa's biggest economy last year. President William Ruto's administration has been struggling to narrow the fiscal deficit and govern under a heavy total debt to gross domestic product ratio of around 2/3, well above the 55% level considered a sustainable threshold. The government is seeking new sources of funding after last year's countrywide protests forced it to pursue austerity measures and scrap planned tax hikes worth more than $2.7 billion. The dollar slid on further signs that US President Donald Trump may adopt a softer stance in tariff negotiations and heightened expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts. Trump says he is willing to extend an 8th of July deadline for completing trade talks with countries before higher US tariffs are imposed. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent suggested earlier that the Trump administration may offer extensions from a July trade deal deadline for countries negotiating in good faith. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 543, Botswana 13 pula 23, Kenya 128 shilling 474, and Zambia 24 kwacha 88. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar there will cost you 5 real 55, Russia 78 rubles 96, India 85 rupees 48, China 71.19, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 71 cents. Dollar is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold is trading at $3,376 and platinum $1,264 per ounce. Brand crude oil $69.41 a barrel. Now, for any business stories you would like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África @newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa, partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station.
Love Ira Star. This is Rhythm and Blues. She's got such an incredible voice and a great vibe.
Cool
great
vibes.
vibe indeed. Rhythm and Blues is the name of this song and takes us to 9:45 Central Africa time. We're speaking about adult play, and the funniest thing is happening because I saw a game on TikTok that's almost like the game that I spoke about earlier called Amoreka Omo that we used to play, right? And so I see this game on TikTok and I gather some items. So this game is literally like some items, just general, random items gathered, and then you guys are passing it around each other in a circle and naming the item. It's more complicated than it sounds that I'm describing it. So I grabbed some items from my bag, a card, a spray, a sanitizer spray. What else did I grab? Some sweets, and my keys. So a card, a spray, some sweets, and my keys. And then I go over to my team here. There's me and Benjamin. There's Selena, our producer, and Chuchu, our technical producer. I'm like, let's play this game. Let's try it out. And it's definitely more complicated than it looks. We went and watched a video together. I sent them to a group of ours. And now we're going to watch this particular game properly and try again. Because our first attempt was terrible, but also I didn't really explain it in the same way that it needed to be played. So I went back to the video, checked how we play it. It is a little bit complicated, but we are going to play this game today. There's also some sweets here, so I said anyone who doesn't want to play my game is not getting the sweets. So hopefully Ben still wants to play. Ben, do you want some of my sweets?
It's so complicated.
Ben, do you want sweets? No, Ben. No, Ben,
I don't want to play.
Want the sweets. They're so delicious. They're sour jelly babies.
And it is my favorite, actually.
Yeah, okay, great. So we are going to play the game, hopefully in the second hour of the show, and hopefully it's a success the second time around. But what are some of your favorite childhood games that you used to play? And when you gather with your friends, are you guys always doing the same things? I mean, first of all, a lot of us, when we gather with our friends, we're always talking about the stress in our lives. I guess that's a form of relieving stress, right? Talking and discussing the things that are happening in our lives, especially, I'll say, for women in particular, because those are the spaces that I'm around. So when I'm with my girls, we chat about what's been happening in our lives. We unpack some of the things that have been disturbing or making us sad recently. We then support each other and speak about it. But then we have a drink or two, and then we listen to some music and we dance in the house or in the yard and we enjoy ourselves. But are we playing? Adult hanging out has become so mundane and boring that maybe sometimes you need to just whip out a board game, whip out some cards, maybe even a puzzle. When was the last time you put together a puzzle? Those were always so fun, weren't they?
Yeah, puzzles are my favorite.
Yeah, I love puzzles. We also used to have a lot of puzzles at my house. There used to be one for the adults, because there's these small pieces with a lot of this huge puzzles. Mm-hmm. But there's also been all sorts of different puzzles that we love to play.
Yeah.
There's this particular puzzle piece that we have at home that's just squares, and behind it there's triangles and circles, and it's a drum band playing, right? A drum band with the trumpets and all of that. But also these are wooden pieces that are rectangles. So we also play another game with them. We stack them and see who gets the highest stack before the stack falls. So it's
that's fun.
Yeah, that's so much fun. So yeah, I love to play. My family is a family that loves to play as well. But adults just don't like playing anymore. What's your favorite game? Let us know. We are live on Facebook. Find us there on Channel Africa. You can also send a voice note on our WhatsApp number, +27 63 406 9126. And of course, it's not just the live stream that you have to look out for. All our social media platforms are open for us to have these discussions together. So find us there at Channel Africa 1 on X, on TikTok, on Instagram, as well as on YouTube. For now, let's take a quick break and we'll come back, maybe figure out this game thing a little bit more and play later.
Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, BADEA, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal, is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
To Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it.
That one is titled IDK featuring Zlatan. It really got me moving. It really got me in the groove there. Hope that it did for you the same wherever you are listening to us. In your kitchen, maybe you are doing some work somewhere in your work studio. Thank you for listening to us. Maybe you're in the streets of Nairobi. We know we always have someone who's always saying, I'm in the streets of Nairobi in our live stream. So it's fantastic wherever you are. Thank you for welcoming us in your space. We do not take that for granted at all. And I love the idea that play is something that actually creates a moment away from reality. The thing about adulthood, you think you always have to be adulting. We speak about that phrase in South Africa. Oh, I'm so tired of adulting. Adulting is so very hard on me. I don't know all these pressures
adulting
of
is
life.
A scam.
Adulting is a scam. But I think that's what child play actually does for us. It actually makes us move away from the serious things that definitely we have to go back to and deal with. I'm not saying let's be indifferent to them, but it does allow us to create that departure and have a moment of just activity, relaxation, but also to connect with others. That's the beautiful thing. I mean, we've been looking at different videos of people playing games, right, in table settings with their family members and friends, or outside in the fields. What it does, it also makes you connect with people in ways that are not necessarily intellectual. As adults, we like being serious and all intellectual and be super engaging, but also it's a fantastic informal way for us to stay in touch with each other and connected, and that's why it's so fantastic, right?
100%. I mean, if you remove yourself from the everyday mundane things with the people that are around you, and you get an opportunity to play together, or you make an opportunity, I don't want to say get an opportunity like it just falls out of the sky. You have to make the opportunity to play together. The same way you just hang out with your guys or your girls, or you just, chilling like you guys usually do. Someone just whip out a game or suggest one, and you see that even though you guys, have great conversations all the time, you laugh at different things, the type of laughter you'll be laughing will be different.
It's a different vibe.
The vibe is different, the joy is different, because it comes from a space that's been suppressed for a long time, right? That child in you, and you giggle like that child again, and you guys sort of like, rolling down and laughing, and it's definitely just brings out a different energy from all of you, and it's a beautiful way to connect with one another in a different way. So play, guys. Let's try it out. Let's play something, have a games night. It's great. and not just the kinds of games night that we only have as adults, like you play 30 seconds, which is also amazing.
Which
it's
is
great to play,
yeah,
which is great. I love that type of games night, but also bring back some of the games you guys to play as children, some of the favorites from your childhood, and just see how that gives you like a new sense of joy and joyfulness as an individual, but also as a group.
Yeah, I don't know if our producer and I have some telepathy, because in our next conversation, I was actually listening to a very cool podcast on leadership, and there was a guest by the name of Ariana Mlo who was speaking about this concept that we're going to be speaking about in our Becoming feature. And I was like, when we were going to talk about it today, when I saw it on the list of conversations, I'm like, this is what I was listening to just like a few days ago,
Great
which
minds.
is creating like a personal board of directors. That's such an interesting thing. So at times with our careers, we go on it alone, right? Because that's the only thing we do. Or we feel like we need peers around us to support us. But if you are someone who's really serious about your career direction, there's this term called having your own personal board of directors, and these would be people that are accountable to you and you are accountable to them when it comes to the direction of your career. So if you are pursuing maybe a huge career change, then you'll go to this group of advisors, mentors, and you'll put them on a Zoom together. At times, maybe separately, you'll do different consultations with each one of them, and you'll be like, guys, I have this new move that I want to make, but I'm afraid of this particular risk when it comes to making that career decision. And you can have this consultation, and they can all inform you on how to actually deal with that moment of decision making. That's what we're going to be talking about in terms of the board of directors, having your own personal board of directors. How do you select who's on the board? That's a tricky one, because these have to be people that are pretty much trustworthy, isn't it? And also, how do you make sure that those people will actually help you grow, that they have the best in mind for you? And at times people put together this board of directors in many different ways. Sometimes the board of directors is not just about your career. Maybe someone you look at them, and in terms of how they structure their family life versus their work balance, and other people you see how they are always prioritizing their health. So you can have all these different people on the same board of directors informing different parts of your life. Well, today we're going to be speaking to life coach Sarah Mooney, who's going to help us on how to actually go about putting together this personal board of directors. You're probably like, oh, this sounds like a lot of work, but no, it's not actually. You need to curate it. You need to stylize it in a way where you find the right people who are, of course, have leadership capacity. I think that's one of a great characteristic, where you see their career trajectory is on a positive growth, but more importantly, these people will be accountable in terms of giving you the correct information that's best for you. So Sarah Mooney will join us in our Becoming feature. Well, that's coming up in our second hour, but to start us off, let's find out what's happening in the news before we get into that conversation.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Benjamin. Top stories: the Sawa, the SANDF ready to receive its troops from the DRC, and the Kenyan government condemns the actions that led to the death of a blogger in police custody. Good morning, I'm Cholani Tulongwebe. The South African National Defence Force says they are ready to receive the first group of its soldiers who were deployed in the eastern DRC tomorrow. The troops were sent 2 years ago on UN and SADC peace mission. SADC leaders resolved to withdraw the mission amid growing international pressure after 19 SADC soldiers were killed in clashes between the DRC army and the M23 rebels. Spokesperson Prince Chabalala says the first group of over 2,000 soldiers will go through a process of demobilization.
So far, they will undergo what we call the process of demobilization. We have in place our medical psycho support teams that are in place that will ensure that they are evaluated. They go through our own administrative process as per regulations in terms of the National Defence Force, that when we are coming back from any military mission, you go through that process. So we will do that normal standard routine of the mobilization process, where they will be debriefed and also receive psycho support in terms of the medical and to ensure that they are fully integrated back into the National Defence Force.
Kenyan government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura says they condemn the actions that led to the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. According to a post-mortem, Ojwang was hit on the head and his death was likely to have been caused by assault. Albert Ojwang, a digital creator who microblogged on X and Facebook on topical political and social issues, was arrested in Homa Bay, a town in western Kenya, on Friday. He was detained over a post on X that was allegedly critical of Deputy Inspector General of Police. Mwaura says the actions are unacceptable.
From the government's stand is that we will make sure that there is justice that is brought to book. The police who are been allegedly suspected for having done this, there will be investigation by the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPO as we call it here, and so action shall be taken, and already action has already been taken to a certain extent, and we really condemn as a government this action. It's not acceptable. It doesn't matter whether somebody has been defamed or not, but that cannot cost life.
The murder case of South African musician Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Dibelo Tibbs Motsoane is expected to resume today in the High Court in Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. The prominent rapper and his celebrity chef friend were gunned down outside a restaurant in Durban 2 years ago. 5 people are accused of the murders. They face charges including murder, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, unlawful possession of firearms and money laundering. Washington has launched a review of its multi-billion-dollar submarine deal with Britain and Australia. Under the AUKUS Pact, widely seen as a response to China's growing power, Australia will get its first nuclear-powered submarines from the US. The US defense official says they want to ensure that the project is aligned with President Donald Trump's America First agenda. The BBC's Katie Watson has the details.
The Australian government is downplaying this, saying that it's normal, it's understandable for new administrations to review deals that were made under previous administrations. But certainly there's a growing voice, a criticism of people concerned that Australia perhaps needs a more independent defence strategy. The Defence Minister, Richard Marles, saying that it's no good for Australia to be chopping and changing. They need to stick to a plan because, of course, it was 4 years ago that Australia dumped a deal with France in favour of the AUKUS Pact.
Africa must take the lead in developing its own health research and clinical trial systems. That's the message from physician-scientist Dr. Tariro Makadzange. Speaking on Channel Africa Conversations, Dr. Makadzange, who heads the Africa Clinical Research Network, says the continent can no longer afford to rely on foreign-led studies that often fail to reflect Africa's unique health realities. Here's a clip from that conversation.
So when we started to think about setting up ACRN, the Africa Clinical Research Network, there were a few things that struck us. One, when COVID occurred, Africa did make significant contributions, but we wondered, couldn't Africa have done more? So what happens when the pandemic is not a global pandemic? It's an Africa-only problem. Do we have the full R&D landscape to go from lab discovery to product to clinical trials? And when we thought about it critically, we thought, no, that's not the case.
You can catch the full interview of Dr. Tariro Makadzange with Peter Ndoro on this week's podcast, Channel Africa Conversations on YouTube. Recapping the top story this hour, the South African National Defence Force says they are ready to receive the first group of its soldiers who are deployed in the Eastern DRC tomorrow. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulongwebe.
SABC News. The African perspective.
Hey, we're ready to go into the second hour of On the Move. You are listening to Channel Africa on DSTV Channel 802, OpenView 628. Those are the audio channels that we have. And thank you for also joining us on our website if you are streaming us live on www.channelafrica.co.za. Thanks to the streamers. We love the streamers. I know that it is a way where you're like, no, but I always listen to you guys conventionally through the radio wave. But look, you can just come in and out and just check us out, what we're doing in studio. And also we at times have our guests who are streaming live as well with us from their homes. So we zoom them into our conversations. So we make sure that you have a full, is it a 4D or 5D experience? So we make it multi-dimensional, right? So you can have that great radio experience. Well, we're moving into the second hour. I love this becoming feature. You know why? Because we tend to do live alone at times. And I love people when they say, let's do live together. Let's just do it together. Let's not do it separately. Let's make sure that whatever we do, that we engage in a path where we are motivating each other, we're inspiring each other, we're moving along the lines of our successes and even our failures together. Look, it's so easy for people to acknowledge you when you're doing well, right? It's so easy when people are actually giving you, the heads up when you have that successful moment. But it's very, very tough when you're at a point in your life where you have to make a very hard decision, where you have to find yourself in a moment whereby you actually don't know which direction to take and you don't know who to call to. So there's this new concept that we're going to be speaking about in our becoming feature, and it is called a need for personal board of directors. Not that board of directors that is of a system that is from a corporate perspective, but think about it, maybe it is related to that, because if you see your career as a business, then it makes sense, doesn't it? So the board of directors, when you just choose and curate mentors, trustworthy friends, colleagues, people who can actually harness and help you improve your career trajectory, and at times not even just to improve it, but just to have people that are there even in the most difficult moments in your life, that you can put them in one Zoom and say, guys, let's chat. I'm having this breakdown. I'm really struggling with this at work. What do you think I should do? We'll be speaking to life coach Sarah Munyi on that one.
It's definitely a good idea. We're going to be wrapping up with our parenting and family corner in the final hour of the show, speaking about something called Agility Profile, and that's an assessment that offers a powerful way for young people to understand how their brain works, how they learn, and what their natural talents are, but also how to manage stress in a way that actually fits them as an individual. It's around exam time, this time of the year, for many people across the globe and here in South Africa as well. And so are these children really learning, studying, and maintaining stress in a way that fits them as an individual? We know that we do live in a society where school happens just in one way, and some people struggle because of that, because you're teaching and learning in one way, where we are individuals and we're actually learning in various different ways. So let's go into that conversation in the next hour. As usual, live on all our various platforms. We love to have you there. Do join us, and we want you to be a part of the Channel Africa family. It's the second hour of On the Move.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
The Shy Guy, a Morning Switch.
Have you ever listened to a song and then it gives you goosebumps? Cause it takes you way back in the 80s. My goodness. Hey baby. You hear Yvonne Chaga Chaga there. I wanna talk to the DJ. And then the DJ goes like, hey baby, I've got you on the other side. There were no WhatsApps then, right? There were no sliding in the TMs at the time. Oh man.
Your weekend African mornings are activated with the Shy Guy on the Morning Switch. June is Youth Month in South Africa. Celebrate Africa's young voices with us. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Keeping you on the know and on the move.
Hey, how do we become better people? That's what the Becoming feature is all about. Today we're speaking about a very cool subject matter because at times you do feel alone in your career. Well, that's if you don't have a great supporting structure, whether you've got great mentors or you've got great colleagues, or it's good always to have people that can be a great sounding board. But many of us are just like winging it, just going for it in our careers, and that's what we're going to be speaking about. Do you think there's a need to have your own personal board of directors, a circle of personal advisors, mentors who are really keen and interested in your growth? Just like a company has advisors to help guide its vision and strategy, each of us can benefit from having a circle of friends we trust, mentors, colleagues, even an honest cousin who tells us, look, this is the challenge, you need to deal with it this way, or look, maybe you should double check if this is the right organization that you want to work for, or maybe you're getting discouragements around you, someone to cheer you on. Whether you're navigating career changes, personal decisions, or just trying to level up as a human being, the way of surrounding yourself with people that are good for you is not always easy, but can be so beneficial. So who should be on your board of directors, and how should they be helping you to grow? Helping us on this one is life coach Sarah Muni on the line. Hey Sarah, welcome back on the show.
Thank you, sir. I'm always glad to be here.
Yeah, it's always cool having you here. Let's talk a little bit about this one. Board of directors sounds very serious, sounds very official. Like, no, man, you know, my career is almost like a company. Is it that serious, or does it have its also softer ways of actually being beneficial to you? Can you give us a definition of what this board of directors looks like?
Exactly, because your life is serious business and there's no rehearsal to your life. So that's why serious companies and companies that have visions, they are doing well, they are successful, you'll find, as you've said, they have board of directors because they are serious about the vision they are pushing. They are serious about making impact in the marketplace or in the society or in whichever space that they are. That's why they have board of directors. And I want you to know that your life is also serious business and we need to take it as it is. I know sometimes, you know, we just take ourselves lightly. We say, oh, it's my goals, it's my dreams, it's my vision. I don't need to bother anyone with it. And, you know, that's how they also die a natural death sometimes, you know, because there's nobody to hold you accountable. There's nobody, there's little to no accountability. Where there is accountability, there is always performance. The reason why companies and organizations will have board of directors is one, for oversight, two, accountability. Where there is accountability, there is performance. And your life is serious business. That's why you need a board of directors. It's that serious.
I like the fact that you're saying let's take our careers very seriously and let's take ourselves seriously when it comes to our careers, because at times many of us just think like we're just weighing it, let's just go for it, we'll see what happens. But it's important to make sure that we architect our careers in a way that's going to actually be of a serious nature. Let's come back to the board of directors. Trust is something that many of us don't have, whether it's with our colleagues, whether it's with our mentors. We struggle with this trust factor. And let's talk a little bit about that, because when you're going to say, guys, this is my career, this is my goal, I'm handing you the vision of my life and my career, I need you guys to hold me accountable. Definitely you have to have a lot of trust. How do you select those people that you need to actually walk this journey with, and how much should you be trusting them in this career direction?
Okay, I want to start it from here. Can we trust you as well? Are you a trusted person as well? Because you attract who you are.
Yeah.
If we cannot trust you, you are not a reliable person. You are random. That is, you're random. You're not very reliable. it will be hard to also find people who it will be hard even for you to trust. It will be hard for you to trust people if you're also not a trusted person. But if you're somebody who is trustworthy, somebody who's very reliable, trust me, even the people who will be around you are people who you find you can speak the same language, you have the same values, and you are kind of the same character. You'll also find people you can trust as well. I also like to say that it's good for people who you want to share your dreams, your goals, visions, aspirations, ambitions, should be people who you know you are not competing with. Either you're maybe not in the same level, the people who have possibly gone ahead of you, there's no competition whatsoever. Because if I tell somebody who we are at the same level, I tell them, at this vision, I'll actually be maybe the MD of this company or this organization I want to, and we are at the same level, it will take a lot of maturity and just, from the other party, and somebody who is genuinely happy for you to cheer you on. Otherwise, it's very possible to be telling your dreams to people who are jealous of you. So it's very important that first we learn to be trustworthy. That's the first thing. Two, look for people who you are not in the same level. Let me say that. People who you are not competing in anything. You're not competing. There's no competition whatsoever. I admire you. Admire what you do. And I think that, you can be able to hold my hand. You've held many people's hands. I trust you to hold my hand. It's good. And also, I want to say it's good to also do that prayerfully as well, so that you can get somebody who actually is interested in you. It's not somebody who you tell and then they steal your idea. I think it's good to consider that as well.
That's 100% true, Sarah. Who's to say that many of us actually don't have a board of directors, maybe one that we haven't appointed as yet. And perhaps you see that, my life isn't going as well as I'd like it to go right now. Yet you have these group of people, the people that you tell your secrets to, the people that you're always speaking to on a daily basis, but they're not really assisting you. Can you tell that, okay, it seems like I do have a board of directors, but these people that I've surrounded myself with are not really beneficial to my growth?
I want to say this. It's possible to outgrow a mentor. It's possible, because let me tell you, people, even God sends these people in your life or aligns them to your life for a season. It may not be for a lifetime, and you need to know when that time is up. There could have been help. Maybe they were sent to just help you navigate a rough patch that you are going through in life. And after that, maybe you find like you're going separate ways. It's okay to release people with grace, with love, and it's okay. They don't have to be, in your life, for the rest of your life. But maybe they were there for a season. Learn to let people in and out with grace, because even for you, you're probably not in people's lives, all the time. It's somebody you engaged with maybe for 2 or 3 years. They were beneficial to you. You helped each other. And then from that time, maybe the friendship shifted to something else. Life is, we have seasons in life, and it's good to know when it's time and when it's time to let go as well. I want to say that it's important to really appreciate the input of every mentor that we get. Appreciate. And the other thing we need to know, and this is important, is that you are the one seeking mentorship. I am the one interested in this person mentoring me, and they are busy. So I don't expect that they're the ones looking for me. I'm the one looking for them, because I'm the one interested to learn from this person. So when we expect that they're the ones to call, they're the ones to do everything, keep following us, like mothering and parenting us,
it's not going to happen, right?
If you expect a parent from a mentor, you'll be very disappointed.
Okay, Sarah, let's take a bit of a break. How do you put together this particular board of directors? It's not just friends that are going to be casual about it. It's not just colleagues that are going to be competing with you, as you've been mentioning. It's people that are actually going to take you seriously, and you also going to take them seriously in how they're going to help you lead the trajectory of your career. Stay there on the line, Sarah, as we continue to speak about personal board of directors after the break.
Vue d'Afrique avec Joël Mouteba.
Alors peut-on considérer cette décision comme un désengagement durable des États-Unis vis-à-vis du développement africain ou s'agit-il d'un simple réalignement stratégique?
Bon, ça peut être les deux à la fois. Donc, au lieu de donner de l'argent à la Banque africaine de développement pour partager en vrac, ils préfèrent maintenant donc cibler les pays partenaires en Afrique. Ça, c'est pour le réalignement stratégique. Alors, et aussi, ce n'est pas un désengagement durable, mais je pense que dans les 2 ou 3 prochaines années, il veut d'abord remettre de l'ordre dans ses affaires.
Vue d'Afrique. Du lundi au vendredi de 15h à 16h, temps universel.
The rhythm of Africa, the pulse of the continent. This is Channel Africa, the African perspective.
On the move, weekdays, 9 a.m. to midday.
Only on Channel Africa. Hashtag on the move.
We're chatting to life coach Sarah Munyi about what we're calling a personal board of directors. The people in your circle who are going to be your personal advisors, your mentors, your friends, people who are going to help you in the growth of your personal life, but also your career. Who are your board of directors? How do you choose them? And how do you assure that you guys have a common goal in your growth? Sarah, let's continue this conversation. If you've identified the people that you would love to be in your board of directors, those people don't have to agree to be there because it is a responsibility. Essentially, you want to grow, but you want to also give dual responsibility to yourself and the people who you've appointed in your personal board of directors to also hold you accountable. So obviously, they might have the right to say no to being there because they have a lot of responsibilities in their own lives as well and might not have the time to do so for you as well. So how do you choose these people and how do you have the conversation with them to appoint them essentially as your personal board of directors?
Okay, I think I want to say first there are 2 levels. There are 2 levels of this board of directors. One, those that I want to call friends. They are there are people in your friend zone. You are friends, And I know there's a friend that I can count on. I know I can tell you my deepest dreams and my greatest dreams. And I know that you can hold me accountable. We can be serious, and hold each other accountable. We need to have those kind of friends. And there's always that one friend that we can share with. Now, because we need cheerleaders. They're going to be cheering us. Say, keep on. Even if it's not much that they're doing, just telling us, hey, by the way, we're still working on that. What's happening? Hey, keep on. Stop, believe you. So we need that kind of, our friends, board of directors who are in the friend zone. Number 2, we need now those who have gone ahead of you in this career, in this business. The people who are there, but I want to get there. So that person is there. He can hold my hand and I can get there. We also need to get that kind of person. So then it's important when we meet them, find where they go, find the kind of meetings they go. If it's a golf club, go and pay. It's an event they are speaking and they're charging a whole 3,000 rands. Go and pay it because somebody told me, one of my mentors told me, Sarah, pay your way up. Pay your way up. And I think he helped me. Pay your way up. Don't expect handouts. Don't ask for free things. Pay. Because if you really want value comes at a cost. You want this connection. Some of these, they'll come at a cost. So if they're speaking somewhere, find where they go and be in those spaces. Okay, if it is like Rotary clubs, that's where they are. Go and be a member of that Rotary club or go and visit them one day. Meet this person and tell them, I admire them. Tell them what you admire about them and how you'd want them to support you. And then as you have said, it's sometimes you will find somebody will say, okay, I appreciate that I, inspire you, but I'm not in a good space right now. Have the grace to just, let them go and tell them you appreciate that they were honest with you. It's okay. They don't have to. It's okay. But at the end of the day, when you persist, you will get the right person who will be able to work with you and in your journey. So again, we also need to have grace. When you get a rejection or when you find maybe somebody can even just say yes because they don't want to say no. Yeah. They will say, yeah, that's fine. But they're never available from that time. Don't take it personal. It's all right. you find the right person that who can work with you and get you there.
Sarah, there's a common proverb that says, too many cooks spoil the broth. How many people should be in this board of directors?
I would say, I don't want to say a specific number, because maybe you may be looking for a mentor in the area of relationships and marriage. Maybe because that's an area of your life. You also need maybe a mentor in business, because maybe you are in business. That is another one. It's hard. Let me say this. It's hard to find somebody who is, can be able to mentor you in every area. Sometime, if you find that person, that's fine. I'm not ruling it out. If you find that person, that's fine. They can mentor you in the area of marriage, in the area of relationship, in the area of mental, emotional, career. If you find that person, it's fine. But sometimes it's good to go for specific. I particularly am following you because you're very successful in this area of relationships, marriage. I admire that. I want that for me and my family. I'm pursuing this other person because they're very good in business. I'm pursuing this person because of professional career excellence. This is what I want because I'm in this area, So it depends with how many areas. Maybe it's fitness, body fitness. Yeah, that's what you're pursuing. You want to keep fit. You have a mentor in that area. It's good to look at all of these areas and find the people who can help you in all of these. One person or two people may not be enough.
Hey, yes. I love what you said earlier on when you spoke about someone telling you that, you know what, Sarah, pay your way up. It's not just paying your way up by going to conferencing and paying them, as much as that is also an important element, but paying by also actions. At times we have these people that we link up with because we want their networks, we want their influence, we want them to get us in, we want that tender, but we're not willing to do the hard work ourselves. And when we don't get what we were hoping for from them, even if they are giving us that mentoring that they see that we need, we're like, this person is not doing what we need them to do. How much is it that you must also be responsible for your career and not using these people as a way out of you not doing anything?
You are the first stakeholder of your vision, your career, your dream, everything you have. You're the first stakeholder of it, and so you are 100% responsible for its growth or not. Whether a mentor maybe did not do as you expected, whether somebody who was supposed to or you thought would support you, maybe a family member, maybe a mentor did not support you, you are squarely responsible for your growth, for your progress. Nobody owes that to you, not your mentor, not anybody. So I think it's very important to work in action. When we agree, this is where you are, this is where you need to be, can you do this, can you do that? It's good to follow things with action. And by the way, you'll find if you're not an action-oriented person, every time you keep on coming for advice, you keep on coming for consultation, from this mentor or from this board of directors, every time, what should we do? And you don't do it, they're also going to get tired. This is what we spoke about last time, Sarah. What is happening? Last year, we are still speaking of this. Yeah. You start to wear them out as well because you're not implementing anything. You need to work in action and you're 100% responsible. Sometimes people sign up even for programs and you expect your coach or your mentor to be doing things for you. Get me this connection, get me that connection. They don't owe you anything. By the way, they don't owe you anything. So it's important to know that we are 100% responsible. If they help us, thank God. If they don't, it's okay. Your dream should not die because of that.
Well, I definitely think that is 100% true. Don't put all the responsibility on your board of directors and make sure that as the first person who is, part of the board, you keep your own dreams alive. We'll have to leave it there, Sarah. It's always such a pleasure to speak to you. And I think these are amazing tips on how to put together this board of directors, but also what they're there in your life to do. Be more intentional about all these aspects of our lives. It's always a pleasure to have you, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate always.
That's life coach Sarah Munyi. Speaking about your personal board of directors, we'll continue unpacking that. But for now, it's time for our latest sports news with File Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa.
The African Perspective.
And in this hour, we kick off with rugby news. The Bulls are leaning on their double World Cup winning fullback and playmaker Veli Leroux for advice on how to manage nerves and expectations ahead of the United Rugby Championship URC final against Leinster in Dublin on Saturday evening. Veteran campaigner and two-time World Cup champion Leroux says the Bulls will try not to change the formula that got them into the final of the URC. Leroux says the Bulls are enjoying their rugby, playing for each other, and in the memory of Conal Hendricks, a former Bulls player who passed away in May this year.
We are enjoying ourselves. We have been enjoying ourselves this season, playing for one another. It's gotten us to the final, and it's about doing the same thing that we have been doing the whole year. I don't think there's a need to put any added pressure onto us. We go out there, we're playing for our brothers, we're playing for our friend that we've lost. We have one job to do, and that's what we're focusing on.
Leroux knows a thing or two about playing in the finals, most importantly, to take the chance to attack when it presents itself, because it might be the only one in a final.
These finals are as fine margins, whether it's home, whether it's away. These games come down to maybe one moment, one mistake you might make, one piece of brilliance someone else does. They all say it's mission impossible, but we'll have to wait and see on Saturday.
Now, football news. Zimbabwe senior men's football team played to a 1-0 draw against Niger in a friendly match played at the Stade Pere Jego Stadium in Morocco. Zimbabwe fielded a new look of the first 11, different from the one which played Burkina Faso. Magesi FC goalkeeper Elvis Chipezeze made his debut under coach Michael Nies. Youngster Jonah Fabish and Dawanda Macheke also enjoyed starting berth in the Warriors lineup. Desperate to redeem themselves from Friday's 2-0 defeat against Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe managed to find the back of the net in the 9th minute, thanks to Gerald Takwara, who tapped in from the 6-yard box. The Warriors made several efforts to cushion their lead, but they failed to break Niger's defense and thus went to the break leading 1-0. Tavaziza failed to record a clean sheet on debut after conceding from the spot in the 71st minute as Niger equalized. The draw is the 5th for Michael Nies, who marked his 10th game in charge of the Warriors. Now, golf news. Scottie Scheffler may not have been as prepared as he could have been for last year's US Open, but the tournament favorite at Oakmont Country Club says he is well rested and has done his homework ahead of golf's toughest test. Scheffler arrived at the 2024 US Open fresh off a win at the Memorial Tournament and made the cut at Pinehurst without a shot to spare. So this year, the world number one took a different approach. Scheffler says it was important to rest.
So having the week off was really important for me to get home, get some rest, recover, and I showed up here on Sunday and was able to play, I think, maybe 11 holes and really get used to the conditions, and feels much more like my normal major prep versus last year where you're coming in from basically a major championship test, coming into another one is pretty challenging.
Motor racing, Max Verstappen needs to avoid collecting one further penalty point at the next two races in Montreal and Austria to avoid a costly one-race ban. With 11 penalty points in the last 12 months, Red Bull's Verstappen is just one away from a race ban. This weekend's Canadian Grand Prix marks the first of two consecutive races when F1 world champion will walk a penalty tightrope after the contentious events of the last race in Spain. Verstappen will be seeking a record fourth consecutive Canadian Grand Prix triumph this weekend and a trouble-free race that helps him banish the threat of suspension following the rash moment in Spain. The four-time world champion goes into Sunday's race knowing that if he collects one more penalty point on his racing license, he will automatically miss the Austrian Grand Prix later this month. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fire Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. In this episode of Channel Africa Conversations, Peter talks to Dr. Tulisile Buddha, an academic, author, and an expert in indigenous knowledge systems. Join us for a compelling discussion on preserving African languages and traditions in the digital era.
Dr. Tulisile unpacks the role of educators, explorers, and how technologies like AI can support cultural preservation, and challenges us to rethink how we honor African heritage. You can find the episode on YouTube, SABC Plus, and on our website, channelafrica.co.za. This episode is a must-listen for educators, creators, and change makers across the continent. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move.
Thank you, File Lungwati. Let's bring back Tabiso Lehoko for our latest business news.
Business news on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. Statistics South Africa has poured cold water on suggestions that there is something wrong with how it measures unemployment. This after the chief executive officer of one of the country's big five banks said a big part of the economy was left out, making the country's unemployment rate among the highest in the world. Dimakatsole Shuru reports.
The remarks come after outgoing chief executive of one of South Africa's largest banks, Gerrie Fourie, says the country's high unemployment rate would be around 10% if self-employed people and those employed in the informal sector were counted. South Africa's unemployment rate increased to 32.9% in the first 3 months of this year, according to data by the country's stats agency, Statistics South Africa.
The general manager of South Africa's rail company Transnet Engineering, Tshwanelo Tshwai, says that the company was concerned about the state of infrastructure in the country owing to vandalism. Tshwai, however, commended Transnet's role in driving Africa's industrialization agenda, with a strong focus on regional collaboration and localized manufacturing. He made the remarks during a media tour hosted by Transnet Engineering in the city of Cape Town.
Well, vandalism, I think it's a country problem currently. We're looking at many different ways in terms of, let's say, for instance, we have the, as a plant, there could be people coming under always, storm drains coming into our plants. In Kudesport, they do the same. Ours is to make sure that the security is in order.
Ivanhoe Mines says it has resumed underground mining in parts of its Kakula copper mine in the Democratic Republic of Congo that had been closed due to seismic activity, but lowered output guidance for the year. Mining on the mine's western side resumed on the 7th of June, while Ivanhoe will start pumping water out of the eastern side in August, aiming to finish by the year's fourth quarter. Tracy Boomgard reports.
It will also look to open a new section for mining in the eastern part. The Kakula mine is part of the giant Kamoa-Kakula copper mining complex. The Canadian miner says it now expects 370,000 tonnes and 420 of copper output from the Kamoa-Kakula mining complex. It had withdrawn earlier guidance of 520,000 and 580,000 tonnes following seismic activity and floods in May. For Channel Africa News, I'm Tracy Bumgard.
Kenya's finance minister will present a budget today aimed at boosting revenues to service debt while avoiding tax measures that triggered the kind of deadly protests that rocked East Africa's biggest economy last year. President William Ruto's administration has been struggling with narrow the budget deficit and govern under a heavy total debt to gross domestic product ratio of around 2/3, well above the 55% level considered a sustainable threshold. The government is seeking new sources of funding after last year's countrywide protests forced it to pursue austerity measures and scrap planned tax hikes worth more than $2.7 billion. President Donald Trump has praised U.S. and Chinese ties as excellent after the two countries pulled partially back from their trade war. But his Treasury Secretary warned that there was still a long way to go. Trump says that the deal with China was done with Beijing promising access to rare earth metals, while Washington is to export more of its chip technology. The BBC's Nomia Iqbal reports.
There aren't a lot of details so far, but this comes after American and Chinese officials had a 2-day meeting in the UK. Their main goal was to basically find a way to agree to what had already been negotiated upon a month ago in Geneva. There is now a framework, according to China and America's trade negotiators, which now has to be officially approved by Donald Trump and Xi Jinping.
$1 in Nigeria is at 1,000 naira 443, Botswana 13.23, Kenya 128 shilling 474, and Zambia 24 kwacha 88. In BRICS countries, the dollar in Brazil will cost you 5.55. Russia 78 rubles 96, India 85 rupees 48, China 71.19, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 71. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Commodities markets, gold is trading at $3,376 and platinum $1,264 per ounce. Brent crude oil $69.41 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lohoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in business on Channel Africa.
The president of the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, Badea, Dr. Sidi Ould Tah, he is vying for the presidency of the African Development Bank, the AFDB. He positions himself as a fervent defender of economic integration and structural transformation on the African continent.
So I do believe that I have a 360 view of the development challenges in the continent with my experience from both the supply side and the demand side. But more importantly, my vision is to bring on board all the stakeholders and to have a holistic approach for the development of the continent and to develop partnership across the continent and outside the continent, bringing all the stakeholders together to work for one goal is to make Africa great for life and livelihood of the African population.
Bringing the African markets into your home. Channel Africa. The African perspective. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, A living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent. African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices. English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning.
Featuring our girl Iris Star. This one is titled Ngozi. 10:46, 10:47 now, Central Africa time. You're still tuned into On the Move right here on Channel Africa. We're speaking about having a personal board of directors. And I think before you even start thinking about, who could be on my board of directors? Who do I want to help me with my love life? Who would I like to help me with my fitness? What about your career? What about your spiritual journey? All these things are all encompassing of who you are. I think first you need to look at your own surroundings. Look at the people that you have in your life right now. And if you can't think of a single one of them to be a part of your board of directors, maybe it's time to rethink who you're surrounding yourself with already, because I think before we look forward into, oh my gosh, this is a great new idea. I heard on the Move they spoke about having a personal board of directors. I'm going to have that. You first have to look at, what you have right now. What's going on with your personal life right now? What would you like to improve? And even with the people that you have around you right now, the people that you liaise with, the people that you tell your secrets, the people that you engage with on a daily basis, are they beneficial for your life today? Because even if you appoint a new board of directors, these are maybe brand new people that you bring in your life and this is good. The people that have been holding you back can still hold you back even with your new board of directors. So perhaps take a scope and a look at your life, those who can stay, those who should go. And I'm not saying that you must cut people off your life, like people only say chop people off your life, the ones who are unnecessary, but maybe you should rethink how you interact with some people. As we heard from our life coach, Sarah Mooney, earlier, it doesn't help to have people that you want to speak to about your career who are jealous of your career, who maybe are in the same career as you. Then they end up giving you bad advice. They always give you bad advice, or they always tell you, no, don't go for that thing. It's just so unnecessary. Don't do that new course, that short course. It won't help you with anything. Don't do it. Maybe because that person is like, well, I know that if you do that short course, you're absolutely going to be better than me, and you might end up being my manager or my boss. But that's the person that you've been telling all your intimate secrets on your workplace already. So rethink your strategies. Love the people that you love. You can keep all of them still in your life, but you have to be quite intentional about what happens in your board of directors. I think it's a great idea, and it's definitely something that we should all try and implement in some sort of way. Even if it's not 10 people for everything in your life, start one at a time. A mentor perhaps in your career, maybe a mentor in your relationships, a mentor in your physical fitness, or maybe even a mentor in your spirituality. One person at a time, and before you know it, you might have your own personal board of directors. Let's hear your say. Who would you want to implement in your board of directors? What are you looking for? What kind of mentors do you want to have in your life for your own personal growth? We're always available on our WhatsApp line. It's open for you all the time. +27 63 406 9126. Let's engage and let's continue making the Channel Africa circle bigger. It's 10:50 Central Africa time. Let's take a break.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Hawa wa Afrika Kusini wenye asili ya kizungu ambao wamepewa ukimbizi huko nchini Marekani. Je, nini chanzo cha wao kuomba ukimbizi nchini Marekani.
Wenyewe hawajaomba ukimbizi. Kuna shirika fulani inaitwa AfriForum, shirika mbili za wazungu ambao wanatetea haki ya wazungu hapa, AfriForum na Solidarity. Hao walienda Marekani kufanya kampeni kusema kwamba wazungu wananyanyaswa hapa Afrika Kusini, na walivyofanya hiyo kampeni, serikali iweze kuwafuatilia kujua nini ambacho mnasema kwamba mnanyanyaswa.
Kuna namna ya wao kwamba wamepoteza uraia wa Afrika Kusini, na je, endapo Trump akamaliza muda wake madarakani, uhalali wao wa kuishi nchini Marekani ukoje?
Itakuwa vigumu, kifupi itakuwa vigumu wenyewe kupoteza uraia wao.
Darubini ya Afrika 11 kamili hadi 12 kamili majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Download the SABC app and take Channel Africa with you everywhere you go.
When I hear your song, I miss you. Just had to tell you.
Nationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa.
I Am Palmer featuring Kaboom with Mind the Heart. That one takes us to 10:55 Central African time. Hey, we're going to go through our Vintage Africa. This is where we look back to look forward on the African continent. I was just thinking about it when we were speaking about board of directors and thinking, what kind of advisors did we have here on the African continent before colonization? How did people actually organize themselves as Africans before someone just came over and took over and created a new system of being? What did we have as Africans that was a structured way of governing each other? Did we have our own style of board of directors? And of course we did. Pre-colonial African community councils actually existed in varied forms, and it was interesting is that all communities were able to actually organize each other. We think the governments that we have today in Africa are actually like unique. We think we didn't have anything that actually organized us very well, but we did have decision-making structures, ones that were very important when it came to conflict resolution, community management. So how did we do it as Africans? Well, we had traditional councils that organized themselves in different systems. Depending where it was on the African continent, we had monarchies. So we did have kings and queens here on the African continent. Some African societies like the Yoruba, Hausa, and the Benin were centralized around monarchical systems where councils were actually advised by a king or a ruler. So that was one way that we organized ourselves. So you can say that's a board of directors in a community to a large degree. And then we had another way of governing ourselves. There's what is called the gerontocracies. That is when elders gathered together. That is something that was very important in African communities. We didn't have ageism like today, where we're like, nah, the old can't govern. What do they know, these old people? In fact, African communities held old people in high esteem. So what was called a gerontocracy was a state or a society or a business group or a group of people who were governed by the wisdom of old people. They were the ones that you would counsel, go for counsel. They would be the ones who you could actually go for collective wisdom and experience. Now, there's also another way that we governed ourselves here on the African community was through communities. I know today, like, communities can't govern themselves, but communities were just had a way of actually governing themselves. When you look at the Khoisan communities, they had different systems of social organization, which kind of mixed the different ways of governing. So you would have a structure whereby you have elders, and then you would have community selected councils that existed for decision making, particularly in areas of clientship relationships and things like that. But then also how complex this thing was in terms of our own board of directors back in the day. Societies were also inclusive. So you had various structures that made sure that there was fair representation of women, fair representation of men, but not just genders, but ages were also important in how that you formed some of those councils. So you'd have representatives that would actually represent the youth. You'd have representatives that would actually represent the more elderly and also the middle-aged. And then those were forming different forms of communal governance. So don't be tricked. Don't let them tell you that African governance is something that starts now, and also don't let them tell you that we didn't have democracy here on the African continent. There were so many ways in the past that we had ways that we had our own style of board of directors in our communities, in our business structures, but most importantly, even in our ways of governance.
I wonder what happened to all those things.
Colonization.
I know. But what a loss.
Huge.
What a great loss. All right, well, we're wrapping up this hour for the show. Thank you, Ben, for that great knowledge. I love that Vintage Africa theme. We're always learning something new on a daily basis here on The Move. It's 11 a.m. Central Africa time. Let's head on into the next hour of our show. We have Jolane Tulongwepe with our latest news.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Palesa. Top stories is how SANDF soldiers from Eastern DRC to be reintegrated back into the force, and UN warns of starvation in refugee camps. Good morning. The South African National Defence Force troops expected back in the country will go through a process of demobilisation. The first group of over 2,000 soldiers are expected back in the country from deployment in the Eastern DRC tomorrow. The troops were sent 2 years ago on UN and SADC peace missions. SADC leaders resolved to withdraw the mission amid growing international pressure after 19 SADC soldiers were killed in clashes between the DRC army and the M23 rebels. Spokesperson Prince Chabalala says they are ready to receive them.
So far, they will undergo what we call the process of demobilization. We have in place our medical psycho-support teams that are in place that will ensure that they are evaluated. They go through our own administrative process as per regulations in terms of the National Defence Force, that when we are coming back from any military mission, we go through that process. So we will do that normal standard routine of demobilization process where they will be debriefed and also receive psycho support in terms of the medical and to ensure that they are fully integrated back into the National Defence Force.
The Kenyan government has dismissed claims by human rights activists that it is responding with violence to its citizens. This comes as there is public outrage in the country over the death of blogger Albert Ojwang in police custody. Ojwang was hit on the head and his death was likely to have been caused by assault, a postmortem has revealed. He was arrested in Homa Bay, in a town in western Kenya, on Friday. Responding to a video posted online by activists, human rights activists Wanjeru Nederu, government spokesperson Isaac Mwara says he doesn't agree with her sentiments.
I don't think so. I don't agree with that Wanjeru person. I think that is just evoking a lot of emotions and trying to talk as if the country is burning. Of course, possibly posturing for Western donors. That's not the case. I completely dissociate myself with that kind of sentiment from such a person.
The murder case of South African musician Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Debelo Tibbs Motswane is expected to resume today in the High Court in Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. The prominent rapper and his celebrity chef friend were gunned down outside a restaurant in Durban 2 years ago. 5 people are accused of the murders. They face charges including murder, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, unlawful possession of firearms and money laundering. The United Nations has warned that refugees are slowly starving in camps after massive cuts in funding from donors, including the US. Head of the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, says the number of refugees and displaced people around the world has nearly doubled over the past 10 years. But it says the amount of money the agency gets has remained unchanged. Filippo Grandi, who works in Ethiopia, describes the impact on the cuts.
Here in Ethiopia yesterday, I was told that in field hospitals treating children affected by malnutrition, children get discharged before their community empty again to make space for other children that are more malnourished, at high risk for those that are discharged.
Africa must take the lead in developing its own health research and clinical trial systems. That's the message from physician-scientist Dr. Tariro Makadzange. Speaking on Channel Africa Conversations, Dr. Makadzange, who heads the Africa Clinical Research Network, says the continent can no longer afford to rely on foreign-led studies that often fail to reflect Africa's unique health realities. Here's a clip from that conversation.
When we look at research and trials globally, Africa only contributes about 3% of trials include African patients, and we're about 18-20% of the global population. We're also the fastest growing population on the globe. We're also the most genetically diverse population on the globe. But it means that when you and I take medications, there hasn't been as much research on how those drugs work in our populations.
Recapping the top story this hour, the South African National Defence Force troops expected back in the country will go through a process of demobilization. The first group of over 2,000 soldiers are expected back in the country from deployment in the eastern DRC tomorrow. For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Cholani Tulongwepe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
It's 6 minutes past 11 Central Africa time. It's the third hour of On the Move this Thursday morning. Is it Thursday already? I can't believe the week is moving so quickly. You're with me, Palesa and Benjamin Moshatama. The past 2 hours have been great. We've been having good conversations indeed right here on the show. And so we spoke a little bit about in our Becoming feature about having a personal board of directors. And then in our first hour, we discussed playing as adults. Yeah, going back to playing once again as adults. I'm sure that's going to be pretty fun. But if you've missed those conversations, I don't know where you've been. But it's okay because you are with us now and there's still another hour of conversation ahead of us. Go to our website. That's www.channelafrica.co.za. Don't just stream the conversations from that platform, but navigate it. There's lots to see and lots to do right there. But you can also find our podcast by clicking on the program tab on our homepage, navigating your way through the various shows we have here on Channel Africa. But click on this show, that's the one you're looking for. This is On the Move, and under our show's details, that is where you can find our podcast. It's time for our parenting and family corner here, where we take a look at the parenting and family landscape on the continent. And around this time of the year, we have children in schools writing exams. It's mid-year, almost time for mid-year exams, and it's a very stressful time for the young ones. But more than anything, I think what makes it even more stressful is that we've implemented this one way of learning, this one way of teaching, and this one way of studying and absorbing information. But unfortunately, we are all different. Our children are different. They are individuals and they learn in different ways. So we're going to be speaking of something called the Neuroagility Profile. And this is an assessment that offers a way for young people to understand how their own brain works as individuals, how they learn, and where their natural talents are, and of course, how they can manage the stress and, the stress that they're going through, especially during this time of the year. We'll be chatting once again to the Certified Neuroagility Profile Practitioner and Life Coach, Rushka Lee, in this hour of the show.
Yeah, looking forward to that parenting feature that's coming up just in a few minutes' time. Hey, man, we don't want to move alone. We always love moving with you. So follow us on our multiple platforms on social media. At Channel Africa 1 is the magic hashtag. It's the magic handle as well. So all you have to do is use that handle to follow us on X. That's how you follow us on TikTok. That's how you follow us on Instagram and also YouTube. So don't be behind. Don't miss out on what's happening every hour here on Channel Africa. From Monday to Sunday, we make sure that we give you the best entertainment, information, and also news here on the African continent. So follow us on those platforms at Channel Africa 1 being the key handle on those platforms. And on Facebook, we are on Channel Africa. Hey, let's make the circle bigger. Let's make it bigger than bigger, and follow us and become part of the Channel Africa family.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa.
Okay.
Adivinha só,
A Channel África quer ajudar o Tivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel África está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Channel Africa and you have got something in common. The thirst for knowledge. Hashtag on the move and connect with us.
It's that time of the year where millions of young people face the pressure of mid-year exams. They are extremely stressful. I think I still remember back in my day with the mid-year exams, and last year when my son was in his final year of high school and he had to write these exams. It's such a stressful time, and the focus is often on the textbooks themselves, the study schedules, etc. But what about their minds? You know, what about how they're wired as individuals and the stress they carry, as well as the uncertainty that has to do with, you know, what happens after the exams? What am I going to get? How are things going to look like for me? Unfortunately, we do live in a society where, you know, schooling is done in a very linear way. All the kids go to school. The kids are so different. They're all individuals, but they're in one classroom being taught in the same way, and I guess being forced to learn in the same way as well, and being forced to absorb information in exactly the same way. Unfortunately, it doesn't work for the majority of young people. Now we're speaking about something called neuroagility profile, and this assessment offers a way for young people to understand how their brain works best, how they learn, and where their natural talents lie, but also how to manage stress in a way that actually fits them as an individual. We're learning a little bit more about this neuroagility profile, and joining us is certified neuroagility profile practitioner and life coach Rushka Lee. It's always a pleasure to have you, Rushka. It is quite sad that we have to have, you know, all these kids who are individuals in their own right do things in the exact same way.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Always a treat being here. But yes, that's unfortunately what's happened of late. Compared to when we were younger, it's sort of the same thing where children are just taught one way, and people and educators and the system doesn't understand that children have their different individualized learning and thinking languages. So just to create that awareness about a child's neurodesign is so important in education today. So important.
Can you give us examples of these different ways of teaching and learning? I mean, many parents will be listening to this, hearing about neuroagility profile for the first time and think, well, what nonsense. We've been going to school for the longest time. We were taught in classrooms with 30 of us, and, you know, the majority of us were passing. We're fine. We shouldn't be changing anything.
100%. So there's three different ways that somebody can learn. It's either visually, it's auditory, or it's kinesthetic. So what happened in the past was that with kinesthetic learners, they were misdiagnosed with being ADHD and
what does that mean? What is a
unnecessary-
kinesthetic learner? What does that mean?
It's physical learning. They can't learn by sitting still. They have to do the stuff. They have to get their hands dirty. They have to write something down in order for their brains to actually process it. So it can be a mixture of audio visual. You know, there's those kids. I mean, surely when you remember, there's those children who can just sit in class and pay attention and learn just by listening. Then there's those who need to process it by writing it down. And then back in the day, the teachers say, put the pencils down and listen to me.
Yeah.
But and if that's the case, then the child is not retaining anything because they are kinesthetic learners. So it all depends on the individual neurodesign of how this child learns, what their learning language actually is.
You know, usually, Rishka, as parents, we only start to recognize that we need to do something. We're quite reactive, aren't we? Only when a child is not doing quite well in the classroom, when the teacher calls you in to say, well, your child is not keeping up with what's going on in the classroom. We don't really know what's going on here. That's only when we're trying to look for answers and we're scrambling and maybe we take the child to a psychologist or we just give them a personal tutor. But maybe we should stop being more reactive and more proactive when it comes to understanding how our children learn.
100%. I wish I had something like this as a NAP assessment, neuroagility profile assessment. It doesn't test how smart you are, rather it assesses how you are smart. Because we are all smart in our own way, right? There's that whole saying about teaching a fish how to climb a tree, you know, that kind of a thing. So we are all smart in our own way. And with this neuroagility profile assessment, the NAP assessment, it actually assesses how you are smart and it matches who you are with what you do. And it gives the children of today that opportunity to go into career paths, to study things that their brain actually likes and actually vibes with. It's so interesting, honestly.
It does sound quite interesting. Let's go into that. Give us a little bit more detail about this neuroagility profile. What is neuroagility to begin with and how this assessment takes place?
Yes, so neuroagility is your brain's fitness level. So it is not a personality test and it is certainly not an aptitude test. I hate those aptitude tests. Every adult today knows what an aptitude test is. And what happens is that the very smart people tend to don't do well in the aptitude test that's purely based on their risk of human error under stress, highly stressful situations. So, you know, when there's a car accident or there's some sort of incident that's happened and people come ask, what happened? And the person says, I don't know. That is literally because their brain shut down. Their risk of human error under extreme stressful situations can have a huge impact on that. So what neuroagility is just kind of looking at your unique brain's design and matching it with your fitness level and keeping your brain young and agile and, you know, doing all the brain exercises, because as we get older as women, in particular, we always look after the skin and we try and avoid the wrinkles, don't go in the sun. But this actually gives you the tools to keep your brain younger for longer.
Well, this is quite interesting indeed to really understand the makeup of your brain, what the map in your brain looks like individually. Yes. But how would, in fact, when would be the right time, when would be the right time to give your child this neuroagility profile assessment to assure that they have, a successful schooling career?
Okay, so there's two NAP assessments. There's the one for adults, and then there's it's called the toolbox for kids ages between 10 and 18. Okay. So any time between those ages is ideal for extracurricular subject selection, or just understanding why maybe your child is not doing well. And it also has a lot to do with being neurodivergent, ADHD. It is literally a crystal ball into your child's brain to see what it is that their brain loves. Because, I mean, we all know those people whose parents forced them to go to law school, forced them to go to medical school, and then they ended up being a drummer in a band and absolutely loving it. No offense to drummers, but that's exactly what it is. So it's matching your child's brain with what they are meant to do and what they are meant to excel in. So anywhere between 10 and 18, that also gives us a good indication of the tertiary route, so you don't waste your money or years and years and years. So it is quite important, and that's from a kid's perspective. From an adult's perspective, it can be at any time, and I usually do it when there's somebody who's looking to change careers, or there's been a big life adjustment, so divorce, and just finding out who you want to be and who you actually are at the end of the day. So at any stage.
This is incredibly fascinating, Rushka. We definitely want to hear more of it. Let's take a break and we'll come back, find out a little bit more about the Neuro Agility Profile Assessment and how it can help you, look forward in your life and take the decisions on your career, on your life that are necessary for your kind of thinking or your kind of brain profile. It's 20 minutes past 11 Central Africa time. We'll continue chatting to Rushka Lee after this.
Es-tu préoccupé par quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa
On the move.
Hey, it's time for our parenting and family corner, figuring out where your child sits when it comes to, their intelligence at school. They're willing to actually learn, but also how to be great problem solvers is not very easy. There's an interesting way to actually assess this through what is called Neuro Agility Profile, which is an assessment that offers a powerful way for young people to understand how their brain works best, how they can learn even better, and how to be natural towards their talents. Well, Rushka is back on our show. That's Rushka Lee, who's a certified Neuro Agility Profile practitioner and life coach. Rushka, let's speak a little bit about this one because I relate with it because, intelligence is always seen in one prism. You're given a question and then you need to answer it. The thing about that is that there are many ways to answer one question, right? Yes. I've noticed there's just like when you were in primary school or even in high school, I would compare even my answers with my colleagues. I just said the same thing, but I said it differently to you. But then someone else kind of didn't use that creative energy to respond to that answer, but rather went with what the textbook is actually saying. So let's talk a little bit about this Neuro Agility Profile. Once you've made this assessment, how do you now practically lean on what you've learned from the assessment? Because that's the tricky part, because the education system probably wouldn't lean into saying, hey, I actually went for this profile and this is what they say to me, and my mommy says that I learned better by just playing.
No, absolutely. So growing up, we were taught to parrot, whatever the teacher says, whatever is in the textbook, that is the way we are supposed to articulate it. That is the way we're supposed to be examined on it. And that is the way we're supposed to learn what it was. So in this day and age, in terms of doing the NAP assessment is actually making a new way of answering, a creative way. So there's two hemispheres in the brain, the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. If you're left hemisphere dominant, that's more analytical, it's more to do with numbers and spreadsheets and all that. You thrive off of that. But in terms of being right-brained, that's more creative, and you learn and you see and you speak in colors and pictures and imagery. And that is what, unfortunately, the schooling system, and I'm not just talking about in Africa, I'm talking the world, is so behind, because it's just in terms of this is the way, it's linear. This is the way you need to learn, and being out of the box and thinking out of the box is not okay. So that is where the confidence levels in children get challenged and so forth, and that eventually impacts them and their confidence and their upbringing and their growing up. So yeah.
So how do you actualize this? I mean, what would your advice be to parents who've come for this kind of assessment to you in terms of practically making certain adjustments that are appropriate for their children?
Yes, so you know the term the village, right? So it's the parents at home or the whoever's raising the kids at home, whoever has influence on the kids at home, but it also is the education system. So in terms of having a complete 100%, well, at least 99% success rate for this particular child, we need the village to be on board. So if they do the assessment, then you can do certain adjustments at home, especially for homeschool learners, to learn how to humanize the environment and so forth for learning. But it's also up to the school. It's also up to the education system and the learning environment at the school. So this goes for schools, this goes for offices as well. How we humanize it, what colors we need to bring in to change the mood. It's a whole process, but when we are open and we have this discussion with the learning institution or the teachers or whatever, and we educate them on the different learning aspects and the different learning languages and thinking languages, then everything will change. There's a classroom of like 30, 40 children at a time. There are probably like a majority of them are kinesthetic learners, children that can't sit still. So that in terms of the educator, they need to know and they need to understand how the three different levels need to be taught in school in order for all the students to excel at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And also the materials or the tools of learning, what kind of adaptations would be needed there?
So it all depends on what they're learning. So, for example, in a math. Okay, let me just use math as a lesson.
That's a great example because many kids struggle with that. Sure.
Yes, me being one of them.
You're not alone. Seconded.
So I'm completely right hemisphere brain. So in terms of how the brain loves to learn, it learns in colors and it learns in shapes. Okay, it's not linear. So when you're learning about math, do the different patterns in different colors. Do the different the equations in different colors. Don't make it just one color. Don't make it all in one line. Be creative. That is how the mind is engaged with the chalkboard and using different colors and using different tangible blocks and all of those things. It's just introducing something new to the classroom in terms of different books, but different sort of tools in terms of the shapes and so forth, and using out of the box thinking. So instead of doing math about numbers and all of that, do math about the population and involve geography. Do math about food and involve health sciences. So it's all about being creative, because that is how the mind grows. It's a process called neuroplasticity. So that may be very new to some people, but neuroplasticity is when you are creating new neural pathways in the brain. So that is how we learn, by repeating one thing over and over about 3, 4, 5 times. That is a new neural pathway that has been created in your mind. And how that happens is up to the educator, the education system, and essentially the village at the end of the day.
Yeah, just a final question. We've got a minute left. I'm sure you feel like an outsider sometimes when you're dealing with this education system, because it feels like it's so behind. What do you think we need to do to actually adapt as we wrap things up?
All right. Well, it's just having those educators to be open-minded about the different types and the different methods and the different possibilities that a child's mind can expand for them to create bigger and better things for the future. So it's just about being open-minded. That's it.
Rushka, where can people find you?
They can find me at my website, www.devolleaf.com. That's DEVOLLEEV.com. devolleaf.com.
Thank you so much, Rushka. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, because it feels like you are living in the future, and always you bring us with you into that particular future. And I think we're a little bit behind, but thank you for grabbing our hands and taking us where we need to be.
Always a pleasure.
That's Rushka Lee, certified neuroagility profile practitioner and life coach, speaking about the benefits of neuroagility profile assessments for young children. Well, that conversation takes us to 11:30 Central African time. We don't walk alone in this show. We always have our fantastic news team. Let's get our wrap up for sports today. I'm biting my nails right now because the cricket is starting with South Africa and Australia, and it's a tight one, right? As we see this final happening in Lords. I'm sure Figile Lingwati will give us the latest updates there, or we'll get it later during the day of what's happening in the cricket. Well, let's find out what Figzozo has for us.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
And we kick off with football news this hour. Black Stars, the head coach Otto Addo, has already outlined his plans for the games that will be coming in 87 days of the international assignment. The Black Stars, after their involvement in the Unity Cup 2025, returned to competitive action in September for the continuation of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. Ghana will face Chad and Mali, two of the teams they have beaten already in the September window, looking to move an inch closer to another global showpiece qualification. Adu says plans are already underway, and the first will be to get the maximum points when they travel to play Chad. In their recent outing, the Black Stars lost to Nigeria while beating Trinidad and Tobago in the Unity Cup, which was played in London last month. On to rugby news, the Bulls are leaning on their double World Cup winning fullback and playmaker Veli Leroux for advice on how to manage nerves and expectations ahead of the United Rugby Championship URC final against Leinster in Dublin on Saturday evening. Veteran campaigner and two-time World Cup champion Leroux says the Bulls will try not to change the formula that got them into the final of the URC. Leroux says the Bulls are enjoying their rugby, playing for each other and in the memory of Colonel Hendricks, a former Bulls player who passed away in May this year.
We are enjoying ourselves. We have been enjoying ourselves this season, playing for one another. It's gotten us to the final, and it's about doing the same thing that we have been doing the whole year. I don't think there's a need to put any added pressure onto us. We go out there, we're playing for our brothers, we're playing for our friend that we've lost. We have one job to do, and that's what we're focusing on.
Leroux knows a thing or two about playing in the finals. Most importantly, to take the chance to attack when it presents itself, because it might be the only one in a final.
These finals are as fine margins, whether it's home, whether it's away. These games come down to maybe one moment, one mistake you might make, one piece of brilliance someone else does. They all say it's mission impossible, but we'll have to wait and see on Saturday.
Let's tee off with golf news. Scottie Scheffler may not have been as prepared as he could have been for last year's US Open, but the tournament favorite at Oakmont Country Club says he is well rested and has done his homework ahead of golf's toughest test. Scheffler says it was important to rest.
So having the week off was really important for me to get home, get some rest, recover, and I showed up here on Sunday and was able to play, I think, maybe 11 holes and really get used to the conditions, and feels much more like my normal major prep versus last year where you're coming in from basically a major championship test, coming into another one is pretty challenging.
Now, finally, motor racing, Max Verstappen needs to avoid collecting one further penalty point at the next two races in Montreal and Austria to avoid a costly one-race ban. With 11 penalty points in the last 12 months, Red Bull's Verstappen is just one away from a race ban. This weekend's Canadian Grand Prix marks the first of two consecutive races when F1 world champion will walk a penalty tightrope after the contentious events of the last race in Spain. Verstappen will be seeking a record fourth consecutive Canadian Grand Prix triumph this weekend and a trouble-free race that helps him banish the threat of a suspension following his rash moment in Spain. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa
On the move.
We keep things moving with our latest business news with Tabiso Lehoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Palesa, and good morning. The South African Federation of Trade Unions has expressed concern over the World Bank's recently approved loan to South Africa. The Labour Federation has argued that the $1.5 billion loan will worsen the country's dependence on foreign creditors. The loan is intended to support structural reforms which are aimed at improving the country's infrastructure. The Labour Federation also says South Africa has already seen the devastating impact of conditionality-linked loans, which it has attributed to the creation of ArcelorMittal. SAFTU General Secretary Zwelinzima Vavi.
We think that this is basically a return to the structural adjustment programs that are being pushed by the Bretton Woods institutions such as the bank itself as well as the World Bank, which is a push for commercialization and privatization.
Statistics South Africa has poured cold water on suggestions that there is something wrong with how it measures unemployment. This after the chief executive officer of one of the country's big five banks said a big part of the economy was left out, making the country's unemployment rate among the highest in the world. Dimakatsole Shuru reports.
The remarks come after outgoing chief executive of one of South Africa's largest banks, Gerrie Fourie, says the country's high unemployment rate would be around 10% if self-employed people and those employed in the informal sector were counted. South Africa's unemployment rate increased to 32.9% in the first 3 months of this year, according to data by the country's stats agency, Statistics South Africa.
Tanzania's economic growth is forecast to rise to 6% this year from 5.5% last year. The finance minister, Kitila Mkumbo, says that the budget deficit was seen at 3.0% of gross domestic product next fiscal year from 3.4% of GDP this year. The East African country is set to hold an election in October. President Samia Suluhu Hassan is seeking to remain in power, having taken office in 2021 after the death of her predecessor, John Magufuli. Ivanhoe Mines says it has resumed underground mining in part of its Kakula copper mine in the Democratic Republic of Congo that had been closed due to seismic activity but lowered output guidance for the year. Mining on the mine's western side resumed on the 7th of June, while Ivanhoe will start pumping water out of the eastern side in August, aiming to finish by the year's fourth quarter. Tracy Boomgott reports.
It will also look to open a new section for mining in the eastern part. The Kakula mine is part of the giant Kamoa-Kakula copper mining complex. The Canadian miner says it now expects 370,000 tonnes and 420 of copper output from the Kamoa-Kakula mining complex. It had withdrawn earlier guidance of 520,000 and 580,000 tonnes following seismic activity and floods in May. For Channel Africa News, I'm Tracy Bumgard.
Barrick Mining has removed its Mali gold complex from its overall output forecast for 2025. Operations at the Luwolo-Gonkwoto gold complex, one of the Canadian miner's largest assets in Africa, have been suspended since January after the military-led government blocked gold exports by the world's third largest miner of the precious metal. Mali risks repelling potential investors, while Barrick shares have lagged those of its peers. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 443. Botswana 13.23. Kenya 128 shilling 474, and Zambia 24 kwacha 88. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5.55. Russia 78 rubles 96. India 85 rupees 48. China 71.19, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 71. 73 pence British pound. 87 euro. Gold is $3,376, and platinum $1,264 per ounce. Brand crude oil is at $69.41 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg, I'm Tabiso Lehoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. If you are an upcoming artist looking to showcase your music to a wider audience, or just looking to promote your music on the radio, we can help. But there are a few things you can do to increase your chances of success. 1. Send your music to music@channelafrica.co.za. 2. We require the following information to help you best: your label, your ISRC code, title of the song, performer, composer, publisher, author, language, genre. These are the things we would like to compose your musical bio. 3. Listen to Channel Africa play your music on the radio. The perfect soundtrack for your day. With Channel Africa and your music, you will never be bored because we play your music. Experience the best African music on Channel Africa, the African perspective. Start your day right with Channel Africa Breakfast.
That smells delicious.
Live, 5 days a week. Benjamin Moshatama and Palesa on the move. Just a platform, it's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning. International.
This one is titled Ndawana. I don't know if a lot of you saw that Calvin Momo had a symphonic recently, and there were a lot of mixed reviews from the symphonic. So pretty much what the symphonic is a big concert. Calvin Momo, of course, is a DJ, but he has all his, his songs accompanied by a full orchestra. And he had the second symphonic that took place this past weekend. The very first one was with another DJ, Kabza the Small, and so very interesting concepts coming out from the music world here on the African continent. Earlier on, we spoke about adult play and whether or not you still play. Like, can you play some of your favorite childhood games? We did some of that here in studio yesterday and today. Yesterday was actually the International Day of Play, and just finding out what some of the benefits of us playing as adults would be. Here are some of your thoughts.
Hi everyone, my name is Solofelo Moche. I am one of the directors of Kalami Experience, which is the event that we host annually, only in December. So since everyone is home in December, we thought why not come together as a community and play games, teach the young ones how we used to play when we grew up. So yeah, that's what we do on the 24th of December every year. During the day, the kids and adults come together to play games such as Mrabaraba, the Teen, Kati. So yeah, it's a day filled with fun, and there are prizes that are being won. So to see that our event has impacted the community in a good way is that the plan was to do it every December, but now the community is asking us if it's possible for us to even host during the year, you see. So yeah, that's how we can see that what we are doing, it's very good for the community. So that's what we do. We do it annually, every year, 24 December, at Setlaring Pankop.
I love that. Thank you so much for sending that voice note. And it's a beautiful way for you not just to play by yourself, but involving the community. I think in so many of our communities, when people are complacent, when it's time for people to they're not really doing anything, a lot of terrible things can happen in that particular limelight. And I think that's why one of the reasons that we have so many social ills, especially in our more poorer communities, in our townships, in our rural areas, where people don't have much to do. So they just lay about, they just do other things to keep them busy that might not be so great. So, putting adult play in a way that also involves the community, keeps people busy, keeps people happy, and keeps people competitive and joyful. I think that's an incredible thing to do. So beautiful initiative there. Thank you so much for sending us that voice note. Let's hear from you as well. Our WhatsApp number is +2763 406 9126. How are your favorite childhood games that you would love to play today. Gather your friends. Yes, the same friends that you just sit with, and maybe you guys have some wine. Maybe you guys just chat and laugh. Play some games next time and see how that works out. It's been a great 3 hours, well, almost 3 hours of the show. We are about to wrap up and find out what is coming up on the Africa Update. But for now, let's take a break.
Have you been struggling to find Channel Africa?
Oh yes, where can I find you guys?
Well, you are in luck.
Warning, radioactive zone detected.
Listen to the African perspective on our brand new SABC Plus app. Download the fresh and easy to use app from sabcplus.com or the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Or just command your phone to find SABC Plus on your phone and check out all this good stuff. And that's where you will find Channel Africa, the African perspective. Oh yes, this is fresh and easy. Embrace our young voices this month. Channel Africa, celebrating Youth Month. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs, sports, business, music, and lifestyle, we deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes
on the African continent and the diaspora.
Do you know what time it is?
Catch us every weekday on Channel Africa from 1 to 4 p.m. Central African Time.
Yeah, that's us every weekday afternoon. Your weekday afternoons have been upgraded by The Upside with me, Tebohole Khuleni, and my partner in crime, Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
And if you want to find out all things luxury, fashion, travel, and arts and culture, this is exactly the place to be.
If it's hip, if it's happening, we are talking about it. We talk about what's now, what's next, and most importantly, what matters most on the African continent and the diaspora.
Do you know what time it is?
Catch us every weekday on Channel Africa from 1 to 4 p.m. Central African Time.
Yeah, that's us every weekday afternoon. Your weekday afternoons have been upgraded by The Upside with me, Tebohole Khuleni, and my partner in crime, Nompumelelo Ngubeni.
And if you want to find out all things luxury, fashion, travel, and arts and culture, this is exactly the place to be.
If it's hip, if it's happening, we are talking about it. We talk about what's now, what's next, and most importantly, what.
Calor di bomorrinia o Cabo Verde. Chega na mi bofer tão forte que tão senti. Calor di bomorrinia o Cabo Verde. Na nota sindi na meio nossa tradição.
This is Tito Pari. This one gets us dancing. Tanga Mami Criolla is the name of this particular song. And we're moving on out of On the Move. And we're about to move into the Africa Update with Lulu Gabu. Good morning, Lulu.
Good morning. How are you today?
Doing good, thank you.
Good. It's a happy Thursday. I'm good.
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
I'm good. And it's getting warmer.
It is. Right. It is. Thank goodness.
Yeah. All right. So a lot coming up in Africa Update today. We're going to be focusing on, Cairo in Egypt with NGOs and organizations from across the world embarking on a mission earlier in the week to attempt to get aid into Gaza. This is after an aid boat was seized by Israel. So we'll unpack that story. Kasim Parker, a legal spokesperson for PAGAD, that's the People Against Gangsterism and Drugs, will be joining us just to give us an update as to exactly what's happened, with in terms of contact with their members on the ground, I beg your pardon, in, Cairo, and how far this process is, because we've seen the scramble for food because of the hunger crisis that is hitting the people of Gaza on the ground. Aid was delivered at some point. They have been trying to continue delivering, but there are some hurdles with Israel stepping in and blocking that. So we'll unpack exactly what is happening at this point in time. And then women from African ancestry contribute to 30% of breast cancer cases. We'll also focus on that, because that's a very interesting one. Why? Yeah. And, is it because now the lifestyle of Africans has changed quite a bit over the years? And we'll get to find out exactly what the details and information on that front is. And that's all coming up in Africa Update, with more, obviously, from across the globe.
Thank you, Lulu. Stay tuned to Channel Africa. We have the Africa Update coming up with Lulu Gabu, who's going to be with you till 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Central Africa time. Of course, you can stream her as well on our live streams on our various social media platforms. So definitely you can see face to face all the nice outfits that we keep speaking about, Ben and I, that Lulu wears. And of course, catching up on the latest in the continent and the world over. Have yourself a fantastic day. We'll be back again tomorrow. It will be Friday. So we'll be excited to see you there. Let's play you out with this one titled Rombe.
Ndogonongo shanda ndobirwa mari yacho nogonongo kanza mangwana marwadzo nogonongo chanza mangwana pamkwazo nongonzi unotadza
Sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa. Partner with Channel Africa, because Africa's voice is the future. Africa is a story, a living, breathing, ever-evolving masterpiece. And for over 5 decades now, one voice has told it like no other. Channel Africa. More than just a broadcaster, Channel Africa is the pulse of the continent, African-led, African-run, and deeply rooted in its heritage. It's the only international station that speaks to Africa in its own voices: English, Kiswahili, Chinyanja, French, and Portuguese. The languages that unite 1 billion people. We have been there through every shift, every milestone, and every triumph. Not just reporting history, but shaping the conversations that define Africa's future. For brands, media planning, and advertisers, Channel Africa is more than just a platform. It's an opportunity. With 25 compelling shows covering current affairs.
With Joel Muteba.
We go to East and Central of sports, business, music, and lifestyle. We deliver an engaging Pan-African audience ready to connect, invest, and act. Multi-award winning, internationally recognized, digitally accessible across the globe. When Africa speaks, the world listens, and Channel Africa makes sure of it. For business, for culture, for Africa.
Channel Africa,
Partner
we
with
think
Channel Africa,
differently.
Because
The African
Africa's voice
perspective
is the future.